Our sweet butters used to cost around $9.99, but now they cost $3.29. While everything else increased, eggs decreased. I know this is a horrible situation. They don't realize that consumers pay tariffs, do they? It is paid for by the companies, but the costs are then passed on. Before Americans begin to leave their state, how high must food costs get in America? Although it may sound dramatic, it is actually occurring at this very moment. People are quietly packing up and migrating from large cities to small communities. They can no longer afford the necessities, not because they have jobs, food, a bread loaf, 1 gallon of milk, an egg carton. Things that were once necessities for daily life have become expenses. Some families are moving across states just to get cheaper food, not to pursue better jobs. But before we go right in, if you're worried about your health, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this is where we share the facts that no one talks about. And if you're with me, please let me know. In the comment field, put 1 if you're currently viewing and this video speaks to you. Type 0 otherwise. You are unaware of the significance of your voice. In this video, we examine the top 10 states that Americans are fleeing because of exorbitant food prices. Does the list include your state? Let's investigate. First place. Florida. Take a moment to reflect if you now reside in Florida or have just visited. When was the last time you felt like you were getting a good deal on a bottle of cooking oil, a carton of eggs, or a bundle of greens? This is the truth. In Florida, even the least expensive grocery goods are becoming more and more expensive. It was evident from a recent Central Florida report. In just 3 months, the price of necessities has increased by at least 30%. Certain products, such as cereals, frozen meats, and tropical fruits, have increased by more than 50%. Furthermore, this is not a transient surge, it's a frightening, steady rise. Why is Florida suffering so much? Food imports from Central and South America are a major source of income for the state. Floridians are experiencing financial strain in their kitchens as a result of chaotic global supply chains, rising transportation costs, and harvest disruptions caused by harsh weather. This is the final blow. There is no increase in wages. The average person's income has remained constant. At the same time, receipts are becoming heavier, and shopping carts at Publix, Walmart, and Winn-Dixie are becoming lighter. Some mothers must decide between packing their husbands' lunches and making milk for the children. Coupons, discount stores, or worse, missing meals entirely, are being used by retirees. Can you imagine it? People are now abandoning a sunny state that is well known for its beaches and tourists just because they cannot afford to eat. The most depressing aspect? Florida is not the only state. Moving out of Florida due to food prices is rapidly becoming a popular search word on social media. So, are you considering moving out of Florida if your food cost is getting worse than ever? Or have you taken action already? Tell your tale. Not only to tell the truth, but also to caution others. For this food crisis is not a menace from afar, it is rapping on every kitchen and every house. Second place. California. In Los Angeles, a bag of potatoes recently sold for $6.49. In San Jose, a carton of ordinary eggs now costs almost $8. The worst part is still to come. According to a San Diego family of 4, their weekly grocery expenses total about $400, despite the fact that they never overspend and eat simply. This is taking place in several Californian cities. It's no longer only a problem in low-income areas. Even the middle class is retreating now. They no longer enter Whole Foods with ease as they once did. Even Costco, formerly the preferred destination for low-cost shopping, is being avoided by many. What's happening then? Californians believe they have been abandoned by their own state. Incomes are unable to keep up with the unrelenting rise in food prices. The devastating decision to leave has been taken by thousands of homes, not due to a loss of employment, not due to school, merely because the current cost of groceries prevents them from leading normal lives. The irony is that California is one of the states in America that produces the most food. However, foreign goods continue to be priced up, and local products are not inexpensive. Even though they live in the center of a major agricultural region, many are still escaping because they cannot afford to eat. Don't believe that people who are unemployed or fleeing excessive housing costs are the only ones who move away. Food is the breaking point these days. Do you know anyone who moved out of California because they were unable to keep up with the cost of groceries? Or are you considering it yourself? Tell your tale. Because you're not alone in feeling depressed about the price of food at the moment. Additionally, it's possible that your words will make someone else feel less isolated in their struggle to just put food on the table. Number 3, New Jersey. Some people used to think, never leave New Jersey. I have everything here. My children attend school here, and I grew up here. However, that attitude is shifting, and it has nothing to do with housing or employment. The price of a single meal is the reason. In Camden, Patterson, Trenton, have you ever opened the refrigerator to see only a half jar of peanut butter and a few dry slices of bread? Residents are growing accustomed to that sight. Neither the largest nor the poorest state is New Jersey. However, it is now among the areas most severely impacted by the harshest food price pressures. Cereal boxes can cost more than $7. Don't even inquire about fruit when a basic bag of carrots occasionally arrives with a price tag of more than $4. Apples, pears, and grapes are no longer considered everyday essentials, but rather occasional indulgences. It's not simply the numbers on the shelf that are frightening. It's the sensation of losing command. Spend less, postpone trips, and avoid going out on the town. You can't stop eating, though. And individuals begin to consider giving up when even that becomes a burden. Outside of Newark, you may witness vehicles loaded with possessions departing formerly densely populated suburbs, not to find a promised land, but only to get away from a location where even the necessities of life have become unaffordable. Even worse, nobody can predict when it will end. Have you ever wondered, what on earth is going on here, when you see a supermarket receipt? If so, you're not alone. Every day, people in New Jersey and throughout America experience the same shock. Consider your own kitchen. Are you comfortable eating there? Or is it merely a sobering reminder that you are losing control of your life? 4th, Washington. If you ever believed that you could eat healthily for less money by living close to farmers markets in a fertile state like Washington, I'm afraid that's no longer the case. Locals in Seattle, Tacoma, and Spokane have been discussing an odd tendency. Prices appear to get more absurd the closer you live to where food is grown. The price of a bag of potatoes cultivated in this state is almost double what it was a year ago. And vegetables, forget about them. At Safeway, a basic bunch of collard greens costs $4.99, which makes customers pause, look, and leave. What precisely is happening in Washington then? We can observe the truth without even delving into the causes. Every meal is being replaced with more affordable recipes, leftovers are being repurposed, and even bargain hunting is being approached as a side business. Many people used to be happy to live in a state renowned for its robust agricultural and sustainable lifestyle, which is what makes it so tragic. In order to keep up with the rising cost of food, they are now selling their automobiles, cutting back on their grocery lists, and postponing vacations. The question that we should all be asking is this one. What does it say us if inhabitants of a state like Washington, which produces some of the best apples, onions, potatoes, and carrots in the country, are leaving because they cannot afford to eat? It indicates that geography is irrelevant to this crisis. Everyone is at risk when food costs rise, whether they reside in a large city, the highlands, or the plains near a farmer's market. If you do speak up, do you know anyone in Washington who has been forced to leave because the cost of living has gotten out of hand? Their narrative must be shared not only as a cautionary tale, but also as evidence that this is not a case of individual failure. It's a clear indication that the system is malfunctioning. And as you watch this now, have you ever had the thought that perhaps it's time to get out of this state? The 5th is Texas, which was once a shopping haven for working families. Grocery stores, robust supply systems, expansive open spaces, and well-stocked farmers markets that span the counties. Now, though, ask anyone in San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas if they still think that. The cost of beef at H-E-B has increased by almost 40% in the last 3 months. The price of a bag of frozen chicken breasts has increased from $60 to almost $10. The strange disparity in prices between areas is what irritates Texans the most. In Austin, the same brand of milk might cost $3.99, but in El Paso it would almost cost $6. Nobody knows why. The only thing that is clear is that grocery shopping in Texas has turned into a lottery. A Fort Worth woman informed a local TV station that she travels almost 20 minutes to another town in order to save $2 on a bag of rice. She feels like she's being price gouged in her own backyard, not because she's broke. That sentiment spreads. Trust begins to erode when you no longer feel in charge of your everyday spending, when your bills increase but your income remains constant. An increasing number of people are moving and packing up in neighborhoods south of Houston, not because they were laid off, but for a straightforward and agonizing reason. People can no longer afford to eat as they previously did in a place that was once thought to be worth living in. Texas has traditionally taken pride in its independence and freedom. However, those who embody that attitude are currently being forced to make difficult decisions after being pushed into a tight spot. Can you imagine yourself in that predicament? Have you ever returned an item because the charge was too high? Have you ever suggested to your children that we hold off on buying it for another week? Don't be embarrassed. This isn't just one person's narrative anymore. The entire nation is asking this question. If even a basic meal has turned into a luxury, what kind of world are we living in? 6. Illinois. There is a silent migration occurring in Chicago, Illinois' largest metropolis, which you may not be aware of. And contrary to popular belief, crime and social upheaval are not the cause. It is the cost of groceries at local supermarkets. The cost of a carton of eggs at Jewel Osco increased from $2.89 to $5.49 in less than 5 months. That may seem insignificant, but when you multiply it by the number of children in the home, each week and each month, you'll realize that the difference is significant. Fresh greens used to be advertised daily for 99 cents at a little grocery in the Rockford suburbs. The bright red price tags that read $1.99, $2.29, or even $3.50 for a single head of lettuce have long since supplanted that motto. Not everyone in Illinois can afford to eat Burger King every day, and that is more expensive than fast food. Even worse is the expanding issue of food deserts, where locals no longer have access to a grocery store because large corporations have left. Southside Chicago is turning to become a model for textbooks. Nowadays, it takes many families, especially the elderly, more than half an hour to buy a carton of milk or a bag of rice. Furthermore, not everyone has the funds for gas or a car to make that journey. It's difficult to overlook the irony. Residents of Illinois are paying exorbitant costs for maize and soybeans that are grown in their own land, despite the state being one of the biggest producers in the nation. I grow soybeans, but I can't afford to buy them at the supermarket near my home, a Champaign farmer previously told a local news source. Thus, the inevitable occurs. For the sole purpose that the food is less expensive, families start to relocate to Indiana or even farther away. Have you ever thought that a grocery store receipt could be the catalyst for your decision to leave your hometown? You're not the only person in Illinois who has to decide between remaining put and eating enough. Your narrative serves as a warning to the entire nation about food that is out of reach. Your home ceases to be a sanctuary and begins to feel like a burden. Nevada is number 7. You would assume that Nevada is just home to casinos, boundless deserts, and the brilliant lights of Las Vegas. However, a lot of families in Carson City or Reno are currently dealing with something much less glamorous. People are packing up and moving away due to the skyrocketing cost of goods. Imagine a family employed at a hotel in Las Vegas. The children go to public school, and the parents wait tables. Last week, they spent $35 on a bag of ground beef, 2 gallons of milk, and some leafy greens. That bill has increased to $60 this week. I'm not making this up. Some claim that only the infant food aisle can deplete a significant portion of their income. The story doesn't end there. Affordable farmers markets that formerly flourished in suburban regions like Paradise or North Las Vegas have either vanished or seen price increases of over 40%. Low-cost booths are disappearing to be replaced by wealthy convenience businesses. Individuals are giving up on their shopping carts, missing meals, or using their credit cards to buy food. According to one elderly woman, she used to pay for her groceries using a tiny credit card. She must now decide between purchasing vegetables and her medication. "I never thought salad greens would be such a burden," she said in a whisper while shaking her head. The worst part is still to come. In many places, especially rural villages in the east, Nevada isn't exactly known for rearing cattle like Texas, yet chicken prices have increased by more than 50%. Instead of purchasing food by the neatly packed portions on the label, residents are pooling their resources and purchasing food by weight. The silent migration has already begun. Homes for sale aren't being aggressively advertised. To save money, they're moving back in with their parents, selling off possessions or sharing rooms. No grandiose statement is made. When grocery bills become unaffordable, it's just a constant flow of people leaving. You're not the only person in Nevada who feels that every item in your supermarket bag makes you reconsider your entire workday. Because a bag of veggies is more than simply food in this context. In a conflict that no one can afford to ignore, it is a warning sign. Number 8, Pennsylvania. A young mother told me that her greatest concern was not rent or tuition at a small grocery business on the outskirts of Harrisburg. It was the cost of eggs, which went from $3.29 a dozen to over $6, surpassing the shelf tag. She now has to decide between having a nutritious breakfast and keeping the lights on at the end of the month because of what was once just a small line in her shopping basket. It's not just the capital, either. For several months in a row, residents in Scranton, Allentown, and Reading report weekly grocery prices that have increased by 40 to 50%. One Lehigh Valley resident described how he used to purchase yogurt for his child for $1.50 per cup, but now it costs $2.80. He feels like he's dumping money in the garbage when he sees his child eat only half of it before throwing it away. No warning letter was sent. People in Pennsylvania are now forced to choose between a warm house and a healthy supper. Medicare may be available to seniors, and school lunches may be free for children. However, there is no safety net for the vast majority of households whose daily survival depends on food. "I thought I could live comfortably," moaned an elderly woman about Pittsburgh. "All I can hope for now is that I won't have to miss another meal in order to pay for groceries." As if it were a military tactic to keep from sinking to the bottom, the family of a Philadelphia shipyard worker has begun sharing meals, extending yesterday's lunch into today's dinner. No dramatic headlines just yet. When customers enter the supermarket, the financial hardship is so real that they are scarcely able to breathe. How about you? Have you ever stopped in the aisle, deciding between dinner and milk, if you're viewing from Pennsylvania? Have you ever had to decide between maintaining the kitchen and feeding your family? Don't keep it to yourself. Let people hear that narrative, because we need everyone's voice to remind us that we are not battling this alone when choosing a meal becomes difficult. And the only way we can begin to resolve this situation is by speaking out as a group. Number 9, Hawaii. Over 5,000 people departed Hawaii in the first half of 2025 alone. It was because they could no longer afford to eat every day, not because of their jobs. That figure is more than simply a statistic. It's an indication of a situation that far too many people choose not to confront. Prices were already seen as exorbitant for beginners, as you most likely recall. In Honolulu, a normal loaf of bread costs $4, but now it costs $6. Once costing about $3.50, a medium-sized can of milk now costs $5.20. And if folks can pinch a few additional bucks, they try to buy these things. The fact that costs vary from island to island is much more upsetting. The tourist-heavy areas on Oahu tend to have higher pricing. You should consider yourself lucky if you can find a fresh pineapple on Kauai or Maui for about $70. Many residents claim that even with shipping, ordering in bulk from the mainland is more cost-effective than shopping at the island's own stores. The convenience that once seemed like a luxury is the greatest loss. Fresh veggies from the garden or fish caught that morning are nearly always available in the market. The script has now been reversed. A Kona family claims that because the cost of fresh fish has skyrocketed to unimaginable heights, they only dare purchase frozen fish. However, frozen food is also not inexpensive. A single bag might cost over $7. People begin to give up when food becomes such a luxury that eating becomes a choice rather than a necessity. Despite knowing that traditional cooking is unhealthy, some people have given up on it in favor of fast food like sandwiches or instant noodles. Have you ever said aloud, "What's going on here?" while tilting your laptop and browsing through food prices? You're not by yourself, if so. Hawaii is more than simply a haven for tourists anymore. Locals are starting to silently wonder if it's still worthwhile to live here if you're already here. Say it out loud if you can feel the disconnect between the prices that are killing you and the beautiful surroundings. When putting food on the table feels like a struggle, let people know they're not alone on these sunny islands. Has there ever been a time in New York when you had to decide between paying your power bill and buying groceries? Tens of thousands of people are struggling to make ends meet every day as they try to make ends meet. Even purchasing a bag of potatoes now feels like a decision because I'm already accustomed to difficult living conditions. If you shop at large supermarkets like Stop and Shop or Food Bazaar, you'll find that items that used to cost less than $3 now cost about $6. There are no longer any weekly grocery runs. People are just purchasing enough for one meal each day. Things aren't much better in Manhattan, a city that is frequently linked to sparkle and elegance. All of the convenience businesses have increased their pricing. The price of a 1-liter container of almond milk has increased from $3.49 to over $6. The odd thing is that nobody is startled anymore. It seems senseless to complain. So many just stealthily pull out their wallets. Small stores in Brooklyn's Flatbush district, which was previously teeming with working-class families from Haiti and Jamaica, are losing clients. Although they no longer purchase meat, vendors claim they still visit. They purchase frozen veggies and bread. "We can only get one thing," a mother said to her child as she stooped down at the counter. "You have a choice." The custom of sending food home, which is typical for people from other states, is reversing, which is even more concerning. Albany residents are now getting their food from family members who live in states with more affordable pricing. New York has become a place in need of assistance rather than a city that assists others. You would think that the American city with the highest GDP would at least provide affordable prices for its residents. However, middle-class families are being pushed to the limit by New York's opulence and sparkle, making even a trip to the grocery store seem like something that could make you cry. You can relate if you've ever lived here, endured a bitterly cold winter, and hoped you'd have enough food for eggs and chicken. How many more people must depart before New York pauses and considers what it has done to the city is the true question. This ceases to be an economic problem when food prices reach unimaginable heights and wages are unable to keep up. It turns into a matter of survival. This list of 10 states is not a ranking. They serve as a message that America is abandoning its own citizens at home. The price increases aren't the only issue. It is the breakdown of trust. Have faith that the system still cares about the people who are driving the economy. And perhaps it's time for a more open discussion than ever before if what's going on in your state feels eerily familiar, as well as every federal population. If you have any thoughts about today, please leave a comment so that we may continue the discussion. To ensure you don't miss our next unbiased, in-depth analysis, remember to press the bell, like, and subscribe.